CTV family. Catch us live on your TV screens.
Welcome back to the biggest, the baddest, and the most hip and happening youth show in the motherland, where we talk everything under the sun. And right now we're talking Black Lives Matters. Yes. Joining us via Skype, Luvuyo, Madasa. We've had this conversation earlier on. If you just joined us, you're catching the other half of it. What do you think of it? Please let us know via Twitter. It's at EKSE_live. On Facebook, it's EKSE Live. Do dial us on 021-448-0448. Championing this conversation is myself and Riza, and of course via Skype, like I said earlier on, Luvuyo Madasa. Before we went to an ad break, when Luvuyo, thank you for being with us. Bente, Benbuza, since more than a quarter of a century, it's been 25 years, right? Yep. Since the democracy and the Skyboni economy isherishwa equally, there is lack of investment, there is lack of ownership when it comes to the black child good businesses. I wanted to find out, because it goes to show by South Africa has not transformed ngalendlela that we've hoped post-1994 it would transform. Do we still remain hopeful? Because it's been a number of years. It's been ridiculous.
I think hope is a very important word because it also speaks to behavior. Sometimes we hope and we sit back and fold our arms and hope that someone's going to do it for us. So I think something that's quite important for us to understand around the activity, definitely by no means as transformed as we would want it to be and need it to be in terms of inclusivity as per us now being a democratic nation and, you know, talking about the Constitution when it suits us, but not following through in a variety of different spaces where that document is a critical point of departure in order for us to be active citizens as individuals and active corporate citizens as institutions that are out there. That is a long way of saying that a lot of us are advancing in our careers, and I had made the point around personal development in the context of advancing in the aspect of personal aspirations and getting as far as you need to be in your career. The trick is, once you're in those places of leadership and you have that influence, is to use it to advance how organizations, institutions, and the corporate sector are spending their resources in terms of creating an environment that is enabling not only for the staff and personnel in their organizations, but starts interacting better with the various different communities they want to impact and also have as their clientele.
Luvuyo, I want your opinion. What's your say, Glando Gutwa, cancel the hashtag Black Lives Matters and replace it with All Life Matters?
I think that's a lazy argument. There's a lot of memes and a lot of different examples as how that just is a lazy argument. When a house is burning, you don't put out the neighbor's house and say that this one may burn next. You put out the house that is burning and make sure that others don't catch fire. 100%. Yeah. And I think that All Lives Matter is a result of us paying attention to the current Black Lives Matter issue and making sure that in solving this issue, we learn better how to make sure that all women's lives matter. Yeah. Because that's also an issue that we need to start addressing more deliberately, more intentionally as society in all the different spaces that we move in. So I think when a group of people is crying out for help, helping those that don't need the help doesn't actually solve the problem. It means that we're just sweeping it under the carpet, and it's going to continue to be the big elephant in the room. So I have personally no time and patience for an All Lives Matter argument.
Luvuyo, I've got a question here from social media. We asked our viewers to pose questions should they have. This one is making reference to our current situation when it comes to coronavirus and lockdown, because businesses is shut down and stuff like that. If you get paid late or not paid at all, you can't be in good standing with banks. This means that measures that are supposed to support black businesses are punishing the same businesses for not being paid. Yeah. It's like a vicious cycle. It seems like all black lives prove to be difficult in all spheres. Is that correct? Like I cope in the way one, yongindao. siyacinezeleka nje zii-banks
So
zizikolo.
I thank you for the question, and I think it's important to answer the first part of the question around the COVID and the pandemic and the economic impact of people not being able to trade the same way that it would have been had they not been in lockdown restrictions. I think that speaks to a need for the institutions that we currently have. Yes, South Africa does at times pride itself in being financially prudent, but that generally doesn't lend itself to entrepreneurial activity in a global sense. We are a very risk-averse society, and that is manifesting itself in very particular ways during the lockdown now. So I think that is something, a discussion that needs to be had around what does it mean to be, on the one sense, financially prudent, but also responsive to the realities that your very customer, the entrepreneur that needs to survive during these tough times, is then enabled to make sure that they can make ends meet. I think on the side of Black Lives Matter, as important as the topic is, it cannot be a brush that we then paint every single argument to be a Black Lives Matter argument. The current issue around COVID, yes, is impacting particular groups in society more so than others, but it becomes very difficult to address the issue of COVID and entrepreneurship if we're then going to make it another aspect of a brush saying, okay, this is also a Black Lives Matter issue. I think it's quite important for us to respect the strength of a campaign and a movement for what it is, but make sure that we're not bringing it into spaces that it is not particularly the thrust or the focal point. So yes, there are businesses and entrepreneurs that are being impacted more so than others. That's a structural issue, that is an economic issue that needs to be addressed in the appropriate manner, and we need to make sure that we are raising it in an appropriate manner so that the stakeholders and the people that need to engage the top hand are aware and forthcoming with their own solutions and thoughts.
Another question from social media, E-Team. South Africa has a legacy of apartheid and colonization that is still hanging over its people, even in the present day, which profits and reinforces white control and wealth. Is the future of the coming generation any different?
The future's in our hands, and as corny as that sounds, it is actually quite true. So again, to the points that were being made earlier, are we being intentional about the spaces that we occupy and what we do with them, and what we do for when we're in those spaces to advance the agendas that we had before getting into those spaces? What tends to happen for a lot of the personal and career advancement is that people then get caught in the trappings of the environment that they wanted to get into and forget about the causes that they were adopting and championing in order to get into those environments. So I think the future is going to be what we make of it. There is I like the line by Mos Def in an album, Black on Both Sides, when he's asked a question about what is hip hop going to look like in future. And the very important point that he makes is that hip hop is us. Hip hop is an expression of what we are going through as a people. So if we as a people lose contact with the values that we have taken into this genre of music and start being slapstick and bubblegum about our music, it actually is a reflection of us being slapstick and bubblegum about the way that we live and the things that we find important in life. So too is going to be our future. So if we as individuals don't double down in the things that matter and are important for us to solve and lobby and make sure that we get people to, be inspired and walk with us, then the future is going to be as, bleak as we then complain about and toss our hands up and say there's nothing that we can solve as individuals and the communities that we can influence.
I love that, man. And just before we do let you go, speaking about the future, I saw this video on social media too, when the black people were protesting in America when it came to the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement. And it was this older guy, I think he was about in his 30s, and he's speaking to someone in the teens. And the guy in the teens, he's very angry and he's upset, and they burning tires and they smashing windows and things like that. And he basically comes to the guy and he tells him like, bro, don't don't do the things we did. These are the mistakes we did, you know. We fought violence with violence, you know. And it kind of made me thought that my grandparents had a battle, right? Then my parents had that same battle. Then now it's moving over to my generation, where my generation is fighting the same old battle. And when it comes to this battle, it just feels like it's just being passed on and on and on. And we don't know whether there's going to be another George Floyd video coming out in the next 10, 20, 15 years. What measures would you say we could use to kind of fight differently when it comes to the generation that's next, you know, because they're looking at us like we fighting, you know, and we saying that what did our parents and our grandparents do, and how can we do something different? So what would your advice be to the next generation, you know, that might be fighting the same old battle?
To ensure a better outcome.
Exactly.
So this falls quite squarely in the work that we look to do and continue to do as Reimagine SA. There's no mistake that the name is Reimagine, because there needs to come a point in time when you start envisioning a better future and working towards that. They are very, there's a lot of material out there around you manifest your reality by fixating on, you know, a problem. So if you're fixating on the problems, you're almost manifesting them into your future. If you start then, not to say ignoring the issues for what they are, but start dreaming anew and creating anew, then you start creating this new society that doesn't have all these obstacles that we have. Yes, we may have different obstacles in the future. This is not to say we can imagine away a problem society, but it's about us now saying, how do we become more intentional about creating and thinking differently about what we experience as a reality? And that also just means, you know, looking at your community and seeing what could be better. A lot of us move between communities, and when you experience something new, like an art gallery in another environment, surely that is something that you can bring into the community that you want to change for better, so that people can have those experiences. This platform, Cape Town TV, is the manifestation of someone who thought to themselves, you know what, young people need a platform where they can engage, they can be, you know, met as peers and spoken with, not spoken at, and engaged in a meaningful way. And this now has led to the employment of everyone that is on the production team, and also yourselves as, you know, anchors and people who are driving the show. But this wouldn't happen if someone didn't think differently about the reality. So instead of always fighting and saying, you know, we don't have any options, create the options. Make sure that you invest in options and make them a reality for yourselves and other people to enjoy and experience.
To show and see umsebenzi owenziwa ngu-Reimagine SA, you can go to www.reimaginesa.co.za okanye ubafollowishe kuTwitter @reimagine_SA, Facebook ngu-Reimagine SA. And if you want to follow the gentleman that is chatting to us right now, Luvuyo Madasa, on Instagram, go @Mr. Madasa, is the executive director of Reimagine SA. Thank you so much for your insights. Luvuyo, it's always a pleasure chatting to you. We'll chat to you next time when we bring on another topic on the table.
Looking forward to it. You all have a great weekend.
You do
celebrate women this weekend.
Yes. Ladies and gents, we're going to take a quick musical interlude. When we return, there's more of EKSE. Don't go too far. We're bringing you the very best of youth entertainment. Keep it locked right here on EKSE Live.
CTV family, catch us live on your TV screens.